what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they want to do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shit.
How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Today we're going to do some follow-up on the incident that occurred in Indiana State Prison, Indiana Department of Corrections, where we lost a hero, Eugene Lasco, and another sergeant, Patrick Schmidt, was badly assaulted. Eugene Lasco made the effort to save the sergeant's life, and unfortunately that hero is no longer with us. Today there were some updates that were put out through the media, which involves cowardice in corrections. I mean, there's no other word for it. It's cowardice in corrections. And this is a topic that we're going to explore today. I have two guests. First guest, well, they're both on at the same time, but we have Connie Alleyne. Connie, author. How you doing, Connie?
Hello, everyone. Connie Alleyne here. I am the author of The Cage Was Her Cocoon, but I'm also the founder and president of the Civilian Corrections Academy. So it's great to be on with Russ. I haven't done a show with Russ in a long time, so I'm really excited.
Oh, do I have to reintroduce you guys? Connie, Russ, Connie, are we good?
No, you do not.
All right, just making sure. And we also have, as you can tell, Russ Hamilton representing Guardian RFID. What's up, Russ? How you been? How's Keepers of Chaos going?
Keepers of Chaos is going great, Anthony. We're continuing to grow. We're really working on our quality of everything that we're trying to present there. I'm trying to, write a couple of short articles for it every week. Plus, of course, we're doing all of the video content that I sometimes help supply to Tier Talk and that you supply in general. And it's just an incredible, little community in and of itself.
Yeah, but I'm a big fan of the community. The community is they help. They're so generous with their time. They provide so much good info. I know there's a lot of people now that are entering the profession or even in the profession that are definitely benefiting from that community. So bravo. I just want to read something real quick. It comes from an article that was written by, let's see, looks like it's Channel 5 in Chicago. 2 Indiana State Prison employees fired for failing to act during fatal stabbing of correction officer. Now they mean the Lieutenant Eugene Lasco. So real quick, 2 correction officers at the Indiana State Prison in Michigan City were fired for failing to act during a confrontation in which an inmate fatally stabbed a corrections lieutenant and seriously injured another officer, state officials confirmed Friday. Sergeant Patrick Schmidt, 22, was in a common area of the prison Sunday when he was stabbed by inmate Tymetry Campbell, 38, who's serving a 130-year sentence for a 2002 triple murder. Lasco went to help Schmidt, and Campbell stabbed him too, officials said. Lasco was taken to a Michigan City hospital where he was pronounced dead. Schmidt was listed in stable condition after being transferred to a South Bend hospital. 2 other officers were fired for nonfeasance, failing to act when action is required by law, according to the Indiana State Personnel Department. However, it remains unclear what required duties prison officials said they failed to perform. We can kind of fill in that a little bit from our perspective. Officer Perry Baldridge was fired on Tuesday, while Officer Kendrick Anderson was relieved of his duties on Thursday. The suspect, Campbell, faces several charges in connection with the stabbing, including murder. So obviously, reading this, if you work in the profession, it's going to make you very upset. Why we're doing this video right now is to probably give a perspective to the public who may not realize how cowardice can really affect the safety and security of this facility. And this is going to be a focus of our dialogue today. Now, guys, if you haven't, the show Tier Talk to you, brave men and women that work in corrections. So please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. We're going to go to our sponsor. When we come back, let's talk about cowardice in corrections. Stand by.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree As an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it. It's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
All right, guys, then we're back. Now, by the way, guys, we were given some intel ahead of time, so we knew that this was coming out. We knew that there was a chance that there were two officers that hid as opposed to running towards the danger. So right off the bat, when working in corrections and you read this, I'll go with Russ first. Let's talk about feelings. What do you think right now, for those that work in corrections, what do you think they're feeling when they read something like this, Russ?
Let me first start with this, is that Lieutenant Lasco is an absolute hero in this case. And the first thing that I want to actually say is just to reach out to Indiana Department of Corrections, to reach out to his family, and, to extend, our condolences on such an immense loss. We're having to deal with a number of different issues that surround this, but we never want to lose sight of the loss, because the loss is what really truly matters in this situation. I don't know if anyone has seen it. There's a tribute photo that was drawn or rendered of him. That's a fantastic piece of art. And so, I think we'll try and share it here in this video at some point. But as I move away from that, I just really wanted, because, my heart's heavy over this thing, having to, read some of the things that we've read and understand the situation as this unfolded. Getting back, however, to courage and what it means in corrections, there's no substitute for it. There's no way to get away from the fact that you absolutely must have it. I was talking to my old partner today, the best partner that I ever had out there. And he said, we earn what we do as far as our money, our reputation, and our ability to conduct ourselves in this arena in 30-second bursts, because all of the time, at any moment, you could have to, function in that capacity as a hero. And not just a hero, but someone who's potentially going to be called a hero because you lose your life. So when you decide that you're going to get into corrections, you'd better decide that, yes, you want to die an old man or an old woman, but there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. And so you have to set your mentality to know you might have to go render aid to a fellow officer, lieutenant, staff member, in which you are putting your life completely on the line. And, you can't understate the dangers that are involved in it. And so, these particular officers, I don't know at what point they must have somehow surpassed that gut check. I don't know what they were doing where they thought that they just, couldn't go in there, that it was just too dangerous. Because you know what? This is a risk business. And as a risk business, we have to take risks. We don't get away with just, shuffling it off until the next day or until we get back up there or something like that. Sometimes those things are necessary, but you know what? When that buzzer rings, you better be ready to go.
For me, why it hits home is because we have to have that connection behind the wall, and we have to see each other as family, and we do everything we can to reinforce that connection. And the reason why we do that is because when incidents like this occur, we don't think, we just go. Because that's my brother, that's my sister, that's someone that I love that is now being assaulted. It reinforces that connection that motivates us. So what we tend to think about when you have these individuals that are cowards that manage to hide instead of responding, it makes us question that connection. How important are we to you, knowing that we would protect you if needed because we embrace you, but it makes us wonder, how important are we to you? Connie, what's your thoughts when you have someone that decides not to respond? Because to me, it is a decision, so what's your thoughts when you read about that in the paper and doesn't that break away from the trust that we have as a family behind the wall?
Absolutely. So in my mind, I feel like, we don't have a profession where deliberate indifference is okay. Right. And so that's what I see when I see these folks running away. Right. Like, because ultimately we know that even though I've never went into work thinking today I'm going to be assaulted, today I'm going to have some sort of altercation, I've always going knowing that it could happen. Like today could be the day. Right. Which is why I take training so seriously, because today could be the day. Right. So, sitting and kind of just seeing them run away, to me, it's like there's a significant betrayal. Right. There's this betrayal of trust. It makes you think about the bond. Like, so is this bond real? For some of us, we take it very seriously. If I see something happening to my brother or sister, I can't just sit by and pretend like it's not happening or not get involved. And so it makes you wonder, like, what was going on inside of them that somehow that, like, I think Russ talked about the gut check, somewhere along the lines, theirs was turned off. And I just don't know how you do that, especially when you see people being injured. It's no longer the potential or the possibility, but it's happening. And so how do you turn your back on your brothers who are being attacked? I don't really know. I don't have an answer for that one.
Right. And remember, this is a person that's in a custody position. These two people are in custody positions. So they're trusted to do their job. And what is their job? Their job is to provide safety and security. So when the part of the article questions why they were fired, it's because they couldn't do their number one function. Their number one function is to provide safety and security, and that includes jumping into the shit and doing what you can to make sure that, we make an effort to protect those who are behind our wall. And and by the way, I mean, we're not just talking about officers. We're not just talking about civilians. What the public doesn't know is that we also do that for the inmate population as well. Let's not minimize that. This is what we do. So that same inmate that stabbed that lieutenant, that killed that lieutenant, is now also being protected by us from retaliation. This is what we do because this is our job. This is the role that we play. And the concern comes from, can this person be trusted when the pressure hits? I know, Connie, you have a question. What's the question, Connie?
So it was actually just a thought, so I'm thinking about the article, and it seems like for some reason within the space of corrections, you would question why. I don't understand why it's okay to question that. Like, would we question why a firefighter ran away from the fire? Right? Like, if my house was on fire and I had loved ones waiting to be saved, would we not hold that firefighter who ran away from the fire responsible for the lives that were lost? So, like, when I think about it in that context, it's almost like we can't, if your job is safety and security, to see you running away is problematic. And it's the same thing. If there were a fire and this is a life and death situation, we wouldn't be okay if firefighters didn't run into the burning building. Right. So I'm just kind of questioning why that's even a question in the article.
Yeah, it says this. I just want to repeat the quote again and get Russ's thoughts on this. It says 2 other officers were fired for nonfeasance, you guys get the word, failing to act when action is required by law. However, it remains unclear what required duty prison officials said they had failed to perform. If you wrote on the top of the article that they got fired for cowardice, then we know what they failed to perform. They failed to do their job to protect and serve. Would you think that's it, Russ? Is that enough to get you fired?
Oh, it's absolutely enough to get you fired. And I don't know what the newspaper or whatever is thinking about, trying to couch it in those terms. Malfeasance would be if you did something purposefully bad. Misfeasance would be if you did something accidentally bad. And then, nonfeasance is just a complete failure to act. You're just caught there, with as if you have your pants down and you're not doing anything. So in this case, at some point, these particular officers just never equipped themselves with what they needed to deal with this situation. And you know, you have to do that in corrections. When you're starting this career, I mean, I had to ask myself 100 times, is this something that I really want? You know, am I going to be able to function in this environment? You know, am I going to be able to face these dangers? And, you know, the thing is, you know, you set your mental process to, yes, I'm always going to run toward the danger. That's what we do. If you have any other illusions about this, if you have any other feelings about it, you need to have dealt with them and opted out, because you have that chance to opt out. You know, at that point, before all of this stuff happens, no one is going to take, is going to take issue with you saying, I can't do this job. I'm not going to do this job. And you step back away from it. That's fine. I understand that. But once you're up to bat, you don't get to just, you know, watch every single ball go by and just, you know, decide that you're going to take the walk. That ain't the way it works. Right. And, you know, I've been involved in, you know, hundreds of incidents. And, you know, every time you ask yourself, you know, it's a gut check every single time. And you've got to come up and you have to participate and you have to, you know, put your blood on the line for that event at that moment in time.
Yeah, and I also want to mention another reason why I would automatically say that they're going to be fired is because, again, not the fact that they're not able to do their job. That's the most important thing. Yes, they're not effective at doing their job, but they also now can't be trusted to do their job, because what failed them that moment is heart. You can't train that. That's something that should be figured out the moment they enter the academy, when they're being tested, when they're being pushed to the limits. You know, when you don't have academies that are able to do that, then this is what probably happens. This is the end result of people that haven't been tested enough to understand the pressures that they're going to deal with and how they're going to react. You know, that's the key. So my concern would be is putting them back on the floor. If I had to work next to them, I'm not going to feel that I can trust them. To me, they become a liability. The staff that maybe they're to assist, like maybe they're, you know, maybe have to oversee some programs or whatever it is. Civilians are not going to trust them. The inmates are not going to trust them. The agency better not trust them. And then therefore, in the greater picture, how can the public trust them? You know, the job here on all levels is a perspective of trust. Can we have trust in the people that are doing this job? And if we cannot have trust in the people, then we have to remove them. And that comes from just all perspectives. So in the end, the reason why they're removed is because when they were at that moment, when they had to do what's expected of them, the emergency situation that they have to run and respond, what they get paid for. This is what they get paid for. They're not really technically getting paid for doing reliefs or doing breaks or doing escorts. They're getting paid for this. This is what separates. This is the reason why most people can't do this job. Most people can't do this job because of moments like this. So why are we going to continue to think that they shouldn't be fired? Why would that even be a discussion in here? Like Connie said, got a firefighter and they run away from fires. You got a police officer run away from a suspect. You got a correctional officer running away from an inmate. That means they can't do their job. Would you agree with that, Russ?
Yeah, and you know, I just want to harken back to one thing that I brought up before, where I talked about what my old partner said. You know, it's those 30 seconds of sheer terror at a time that are the things that make the difference for us in our job, our ability to function during those 30 seconds. You know, we have hours and hours and hours of, you know, time that sometimes is just so boring and mundane. And then all of a sudden we get that punctuation. That punctuation is sheer terror. Oh, holy shit, I've got 400 inmates suddenly, you know, fighting, you know, in this dorm or out on the yard. Or, you know, I was, you know, escorting an inmate and suddenly he turned on me. You know, it's those instances where we make our reputation and we make our money at, you know, and that's why in some ways it is such a thrilling, challenging job to see if you can live up to being able to do that. But most people can't. And apparently, after this is a lot of people shouldn't.
Yeah, it's powerful. And my boy JC, he was talking to me today. He's the one that actually, him and Russ are the ones that make sure I got the article to share. He said, even if you think that there's no chance you could win the fight, then split the beating. Do something where the attention can be split so not everything goes at the one individual. Because I think me and Russ were discussing before, but me and JC were also discussing it. Maybe if all the stabs didn't go towards that one person, maybe if we're just both together and just waiting. Because think about this, guys, instead of having all that effort for however amount of minutes or whatever amount of seconds it took to, hurt our hero, someone else could come in and split that time, split that difference. I mean, it just, that's what we get paid to do. Even if we can't, win the fight, we hold on as hard as we can until the backup team arrives. That's the key. The key really isn't about winning the fight at that point. The key is just more about telling your brother and sister, you're not alone, I got you. Let's do what we can. And then eventually the team's going to get them. But Connie, even from like a medical perspective, you have to see the need for that response, the need for action, especially from those two officers, because, having one person getting beat on is a lot different than someone else coming on the scene and trying to split that beating, correct? Or making it at least harder for that individual to get to just the one.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. If anything, even if you can't stop the beating, you're not going to make it so easy for that one-on-one sort of, impact to happen. As I think about it, I think about there was a time where we hired like a new social worker to come into work. And literally from the moment that I was on Rikers Island and I'm walking him through the prison, through the jail, and he was going to be covering the Bing, which is like high security, high everything, what have you. And so I was like, I'll go up there with you. We will have an escort. But when you have your interactions with the inmate, the officer won't be in the same room with you. The inmate would be handcuffed to the wall. And I kind of went through all these motions with him. And so from the moment we got on the tier and he heard the cell door closed, he was like, this is not for me. Like, I could respect that. He was like, as much as I wanted to be there to do my job, like, I can't do it. And literally that was the last time I saw him. And I feel like if you are one of those people who like, you just don't have that in you, like, don't just don't do it. Because then you do have situations like this when your brothers and sisters are depending on you, and then you can't step up and be there for them. Because I think the danger in if they weren't let go, I think could be, here it is, another situation presents themselves. Are we going to be as willing to go protect them? Right? Are they now a liability? As much as we like to say, we're going to always step up and do the right thing, like, lives were lost and people were impacted. Some people, I'm sure, that really appreciated and respected our hero are probably not going to be so eager to jump up and save them if they're in a situation. So, I don't know. It's just something that I would think about from a liability perspective if they were not let go.
What about the inmates too? Think about this, guys. The inmates would know that these officers ran. So now the inmates could intimidate, could threaten these officers, because these inmates in their mind, these officers have no backbone, And I want to say something, guys. I love what Connie said. She had the person that was a social worker that realized this job wasn't for them. I give credit to that. I give credit for you walking in, making the effort and saying, you know what, this isn't for me, and that's fine. Don't fake it. Don't be who you aren't, because, hey, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. No one's saying that, we're extra tough because we're able to respond to these codes, because that's not what motivates us. Our toughness is not what motivates us to respond to these codes. It's our love for each other. Understand that. Like, I'm not saying I'm tough because I'm going to respond to a code, because I'm probably going to respond to a code and get my ass kicked. I'm responding to the code because I love that person that's being assaulted, and I know that person would do the same for me. That's my motivation. That's why I can't run from that, because that'd be no different than someone coming to my house and assaulting my wife and my kids. It's I'm going to make the choice that it's me today and not them. You know, so this isn't about someone saying that they're tougher than the other person. This is just about someone saying, I love them more than I may love myself. And I hope that they think the same for me, because in the end, I'm going to expect the same thing in return. But the trust, it gets violated, it gets broken, and it gets personal. Because in the end, when you don't do that, it's not because we're not saying you're tough. It's not about that. It's about the fact that you are not connected to me in a way that I can trust you to have my back. And that is the biggest violation in corrections. Russ, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, rarely a day went by in the things that I did that I wasn't thankful for my partner, that I wasn't thankful for my peers that were backing me, that I wasn't thankful that I knew that if something bad happened, the green thundering herd was going to be breathing down people's necks pretty quick. Having said that, I have had a few instances in my career where I was left in the lurch, so to speak. And that's just a sinking feeling, where, the pit drops out of the bottom of your stomach, because you realize this person that you trusted, this person that's, right there and supposed to be having your back, has suddenly decided that they don't want any part of this. And you don't have any choice in whether or not you're taking part in it, because that is already upon you. And so I will say in those instances, I had one where the officer did get, he lost some pay. I had one particular officer who the next day he couldn't take what people were saying about him, and he faked a heart attack and went out and never came back. And a couple of other lesser incidents along the way. So you know what, this thing is, it is all about heart. Because what happens is, you can get in there and you may not quite know how to talk to an inmate. You might have some initial problems fitting in or trying to get the job done. But all of those things don't matter when it's go time. When it's go time, it's time to run toward it and start slinging fists or pulling your baton or pepper spraying, which has nothing to do whether or not you're quite figuring out how to communicate with people or not. So, you know what? If you're being relied on, go full speed and just wait for the rest of the green thundering herd to get there and sort things out. And you're going to be that. You're going to be that person then that's relied on. You're going to be that person that people decide that they can trust. And you're going to be that person that's called on to help do those difficult things that we do in corrections, not someone that timidly sits on the sideline and tries to avoid all of that extra work.
Yeah, I always say this. I've said this in the other episodes too. Guys, it's not about the outcome. It's about the effort. Female, male, it doesn't matter. As long as you show up and you have the effort to help, that's what carries the weight, regardless of the outcome. Just show me that you have my back. Make me feel comfortable when we're walking those tiers. And, and in return, then I know because in corrections, we have to have that trust for each other. It's automatic when we come in. We have to, because of, the what can happen behind that wall, the tension, I'm not going to say it's an us versus them mentality, but it could turn out to be sometimes. And when that's the case, I need to know what side you're on. And to me, this is what I'm also going to add. And maybe I get Connie's thoughts on this. To me, when you become a coward, when I need your help, you're not a neutral. You're on their side, because you're definitely not on mine. There's no choice to be in the middle. It's either you're on my side or you're on their side. So if you choose not to help us when I need you, well, then you've chosen the side that you need to be on. And that side, unfortunately, is a side that's a threat to our safety and well-being. I mean, what's your thoughts on that, Connie?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, if someone has chosen to stay out of the ring, right? Like, it is go time, and you've made that choice. Clearly, you've made the choice at the wrong time. But I also feel like, as much as we don't want to say it's an us-them situation, you've made us vulnerable. You as being that weak link, you've created the path that now someone can get to me. They can get to whomever, because you haven't even put yourself in the gap to make sure you're part of the shield of protection. And I think that's the thing that, really can mess with all of us. I think as we go into these situations, I think of the many fights that have broken out in medical, inmates. It happens to be where they can get together, right? They're sitting in a waiting area, waiting for a provider. And, our providers are sitting in the midst of that. And like, what would the provider feel as far as confidence to come in and do his or her job every day, knowing that the clinic officer is just going to just kind of throw his hands up? This got nothing to do with me. We've never had that experience, right? And so to know that we've somehow signaled to the inmate population that there's a vulnerability, and that vulnerability happens to be you, I feel like they will always look for those opportunities to kind of pounce and take advantage in our system. And so, if this is not for you, just don't be here. That's kind of where I feel, especially when we know that lives could be lost at the end of it.
Connie, you said something so powerful, and I saw Russ also in agreement. If you work with someone that doesn't have your back, besides the fact that you could be more vulnerable, but you said something, and I saw Russ's reaction and my reaction at the same time. I don't know if you realize you said it, but you're also showing that someone can get to me. I mean, you said that the person's the shield, and now the shield, not that good, not that strong. So when you're working with someone that doesn't stand up, to be that shield, it showcases the fact that, yes, by working with this person, someone can get to me. And that's a thought that you don't want to have when you're walking the tiers, especially with a partner, right, Russ?
Yeah, we talk a lot in this profession about, discretionary decision making. And a lot of times you'll get to a point where, you're carrying out your duties, and carrying out those duties does not make you a very popular individual a lot of times. And so you really need to feel that you have the freedom to take on, risks at a certain level in order to, promote the general safety and security of the institution. If you're always having to worry about whether or not you're going to be able to safely operate in that environment, and that's based on the fact that your backup may not be good, that the guy that's, supposed to shield you from harm from the back while you're dealing with other inmates, if you're not sure that that's set, if you're not sure that that's going to be, a solid thing you can rely on, then you have to let some of that safety and security slide. And that's not what we want. That's not what I preach. I talk about being a proactive officer all the time, because I feel that, every officer should be out there no matter what role they're in. They should be a crime fighter, right? They should be looking for that issue with safety and security. They should be trying to find those inmates that are trying to impinge on that. And they should be trying to do something where they make a difference in that safety and security. So, having someone that's going to be able to secure you and be able to call the cavalry if that's necessary, be able to come in there and help get you out of harm's way, that's invaluable. But if you're having to second guess that, you are not going to be as effective as if you had, good, solid backup, a good, solid partner.
And guys, all this filtering starts at the beginning. Who are we hiring? I mean, we have been put in some understaffed facilities where it's quantity over quality. And this is what happens when we're not doing the process correctly. We're not testing the individuals to make sure that they're ready for this type of environment. Because in the end, I also blame the process that brings people in at some point. These are things that we should be able to test. That by the time they get to this level, I know for a fact, if I'm walking next to them, that these are people that have been exhausted. So I know that they have to have heart to survive to get to this point. That's why that intense academy is so important. That's why it needs to be hands-on in that academy, because the type of level of dangers that we face every day. So I have some inkling that if they went through the academy and they graduated successfully, that the person next to me is capable of the shit that could happen. Not the routine, guys, the shit that could happen. That's what we want. So in the end, if we're not doing that, if we're not testing these individuals, then think about that. If I have a feeling that, hey, these academies are weak, or we're not having an academy at all, I'm not really trusting the person next to me, because I don't think they've been tested enough. You know, and the last thing you want to do is wait for a situation like this to occur to make that determination that the person's good for the job or not. Like, to be honest with you, these two people here, they should have never made it this far in their career where they ever walked a tier where they were put in a situation where someone's life was dependent on them. These people should have been weeded out prior to that. And that's why, again, we lean towards the initial phases of this profession to help us filter that, you know, at least to the best of their abilities. There's no perfect system, but give me something. And right now, out of desperation, quantity, it's numbers. But now you also see for a fact what quantity gets you. Just gets you bodies that are not ready to respond. It doesn't get you bodies that are going to be there. Now, think about the people on the floor, how they feel when they're next to that body, not knowing, does this person have my back? And then we wonder why we remove them. It's just ridiculous. And that's what I got just from that little paragraph that was provided. I just didn't feel that paragraph was needed. Just the ending of that paragraph. Hey, Russ, you have anything you'd like to say in closing?
Yeah, absolutely. In going out of this thing and progressing out of this video, first off, you know, I just want to restate and reiterate and make it known again to Indiana Department of Corrections that we're there for you guys. You know, get involved, you know, subscribe here to Tier Talk if you haven't done that. Come on over to Keepers of Chaos or the Correctional Officer Brotherhood. You know what? Share your grief, or just, you know, be there to just hang out and bullshit if necessary or whatever. But, you know, I just want to put that out there. I also want to, you know, once again, just mention my condolences to Lieutenant Lasco's family. You know, I know how heartbreaking that must be. I can only imagine. And then, you know, lastly, to those of you that are out there doing this job, to those of you that are out there considering this job, let's do that gut check at the beginning, right? Decide whether or not this is for you. It's a hard, difficult thing. It's a dangerous, dirty job. But you know what? For me, it was worth it. I loved facing the challenges every day. I love still, even though I'm retired now, sharing things with you guys and trying to bring that next generation along. So you have support out there to try and figure these things out, or just to be able to, you know, come in there and go, yeah, you know what? Today I had, you know, a huge butt pucker factor, right? So there is support for you. And, you know, whether it's Keepers of Chaos, Tier Talk, over with Connie Alleyne and her civilian academy, you know, seek these things out, decide whether or not you've got what it takes, or just, you know, try and, you know, cultivate what you already have, make yourself stronger in all ways, you know, physically, mentally, and in your preparedness. Because you know what, at some point in your career, there's going to be one of those days that you only want to see once in a career. I guarantee it. Unfortunately, it's probably going to happen more than one day, but several days. So anyway, you know, just take heart. It's a great profession, but we've had a tough week.
Yeah, Russ, 100%. Hey, Connie, anything you'd like to say in closing?
In closing, I just want to say thank you. I think what this conversation did for me was really open my eyes to just not taking for granted the fact that I've always had a shield. I've always had officers who would, you know, if I'm having any sort of encounter, I had an escort who was there. If someone got loud, like, I've never been in a space where the officer hasn't stood in the gap and made sure that I was protected. And, you know, to know that there are instances where people are running away and lives are being lost, you know, for me as a civilian, I've not had that experience. And so I'm thankful for that. So I just really just want to thank all of those officers who go in and day out, and they do their jobs. They protect and they serve and they stand up as shields and they run towards the danger. Thank you.
Yeah, and guys, just in closing on my end, you know, Sunday was a horrible day, but it's good that we get a chance to do these videos because we can learn. And this way, when we lose a hero, they get remembered in the successes. That's the legacy that they leave behind, because their sacrifice gave us a chance to learn something, and we can never let that go in vain. If you're if you're a part of the Indiana Department of Corrections, you know that mistakes are being done. Don't look to point the finger. Step up. Do whatever you can to make sure that this hero's name doesn't go in vain. Fix the mistakes, even if you happen to be part of those mistakes, and step up. Because at the end, this hero died. He died because there were things that weren't being done. So we need to make sure that he gets remembered, and he gets remembered by making sure it doesn't happen to anybody else. And guys, I also want to say something else. It was tremendous trust here. When we had the death of this hero, me, Russ, Connie, we were flooded with messages from the Indiana Department of Corrections, people that worked there that trusted us to carry the message, to carry the torch, to let people know of the concerns, however general, because we didn't have a lot of specifics. But we also, what we were able to do, even without a lot of the specifics, is we were able to encourage the right questions to be asked. I mean, that's the key. You know, I may not have the specifics, but doesn't mean we can't, with our knowledge, work together and figure out what questions need to be asked so they don't get overlooked and so this doesn't happen again. So again, my heart definitely out to the Indiana Department of Corrections, Lasco's family. You know, we lost a hero, but hopefully what we have done here was provide a perspective that can only help better us as we move forward. And a big part of that perspective comes from those brave men and women who work in the Indiana Department of Corrections, who are now going back to work after the death of a hero, someone that they loved and they had tons of respect for, to continue doing what they're doing, which is protecting and serving the public. There's no greater dedication or love than what they're doing right now. So again, hats off to Indiana Department of Corrections. As always, guys, the show is tiered. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.